You're on.
Manny's not on? Commissioner Sanchez, you on?
I don't see him on.
Counselor, I only see yourself, Counselor Abeyta-Stube, and Commissioner Gonzalez. And Jeannie or myself are making quorum.
Okay. Okay.
Do you, as Vice Chair?
Councilor Flores is joining right now. Or, sorry, Chairman Flores. Chairwoman. Chairwoman Flores, we are live, so whenever you want to start.
We can start now.
Yes.
So do we have a quorum? 1, 2, 3.
We do, Madam Chair.
Do we have a quorum?
We do, Madam Chair. You're on live. You can get to introductions and moving on the meeting.
Okay. So we have a quorum. Which board members are present? The voting members are the ones that determine a, oh, there's Mr. We have a quorum. Thank you. So,
Madam Chair, if you would like for me to serve as recording secretary, I can help with roll call. And
thank you, David. Please, thank you. I appreciate it, Mr. Dallahan.
Board Member Gonzalez. Board Member Gonzalez, are you here?
I just unmuted him.
Board Member
Hello?
Gonzalez, okay, you're present?
Yes.
Board Member Abeyta-Stube? Board Member Sanchez?
I'm on now, Mr. Dallahan.
Board Member Gondara?
Here.
Board Member Flores?
Here.
Board Member Quintero? Jeannie, you're muted. She's waving hi. And I'm Board Member Dallahan. Board Member Chairperson Flores, you have a quorum with Board Member Gondara, yourself, and the two commissioners from the county, Mr. Sanchez and Mr. Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. Dallahan. So are there any changes to the agenda?
Madam Chair, if
Yes,
I may,
Mr.
Board Member Abeyta-Stube rejoined the meeting. Can you announce your presence, Board Member?
Yes.
Good
Good morning. Sorry, my computer just kicked me out real fast.
Okay. So
Good morning, Ms. Abeyta-Stube.
we still have 4 quorum, ma'am.
Okay. So we had a full quorum anyway. So any changes to the agenda?
None from the ASCMV, Madam Chair.
None
Thank you.
from me, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll move on to approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second, Cassandra Gondara.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I'll call the roll. Board Member Gonzalez,
Yes.
Board Member Sanchez,
Yes.
Board Member Abeyta-Stube,
Yes.
Board Member Gondara,
Yes.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
motion carries 5-0.
And the minutes. Are there any changes to the, excuse me, may I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So
So
moved.
moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
So,
Commissioner Sanchez. Second.
Okay, and it was moved by Commissioner Gonzalez and seconded by Commissioner.
Madam Chair, I'll call the roll. Voting
Thank
approval,
you.
voting for the approval of the minutes. Board Member Gonzalez,
Yes.
Board Member Abate-Stuve,
Yes.
Board Member Gondar,
Yes.
Vice Chair Sanchez,
I'm sorry.
Commissioner Sanchez,
Yes.
Chairperson Flores.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Madam Chair, if I may?
Yes, of course.
Thank you. I wonder if I could recommend that when we move to motion, second, and/or we state our name, there's also in the bottom, for those of you that are on, where participants, where you can raise your hand. If you want to speak and lower your hand, and I wonder if we could do that. It just makes it so much easier for us to move through the meeting if we do that. It's hard when we're kind of speaking out and I know I don't know who is speaking.
It just sent it. Sorry. So you would like, I'm sorry, I was taking care of something else. You would like us to give our names before we speak? Would you please clarify that? I didn't quite understand that.
Yes. When we move to approve or motion a second, or we want to speak, I think it's important for you and for the person taking notes that they know who's speaking.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Gandara. So the next item on the agenda is reports and presentations. And first we'll have the city and county ACO reports. And who is presenting that?
Mary Lou, go ahead. We'll keep what's in order.
Okay, I think Will's gonna go ahead and go for us. Will, go ahead and go.
Good morning. Can you guys hear me?
What is your name? State your name, please, for the record.
My name is William Lawrence, Senior Animal Control Officer, Doñana County.
Thank you.
Okay, so for our stats for the March of 2020, we picked up a total of 188 animals. Of those animals, 158 went to the Animal Service Center in Mesilla Valley. And those included our 10 owner-released dogs, 2 owner-released cats, 77 stray dogs, 35 stray cats, 6 care and welfare holds, 17 injured animals, 3 miscellaneous holds, and 8 rabies quarantines at the shelter. And we also have 11 at the county court hold facility as well. So that would equal the 158 animals going to the shelter. We had 0 livestock pickups, 2 snakes, and 17 dead animals. Our reasons for owner releases in the field, pulling in 10 animals, 3 for aggressive behavior, 2 that were moving out of town or couldn't keep their animals, 1 dog and 1 cat, sick, injured, and dying owner releases of 4, and 1 who just gave the answer of they could no longer care for the animal. Our in the field return to owners for the month, we had a total of 33 for February. We scanned a total of 185 animals. Of course, the animals we don't scan: snakes, livestock, vicious animals, and some dead animals that are composed. We found a total of 41 microchips. Type of calls we responded to for the month, a total of 652 calls for service, 43 injured animal calls, 12 cruelty calls, 42 vicious animals, 24 bite calls. We filled, educated, and or got compliance on a total of 20 licensing microchips and 38 permits, 35 rabies vaccinations, and 52 care and maintenance or ordinance violations. Our court cases for the month, we had 17 animal control cases. Of those 17, we had a total of 39 charges, resulting in 90.5 regular hours plus 32.5 hours of overtime. We had a total of 3 warrants that were issued. We had 9 guilty pleas. And of those, we had a total donations to the Animal Service Center of $100. We had 14 dismissed for compliance and 13 continuance. And so that's all we have for the month. Do you have any questions?
Yes. Commissioner Gonzalez.
Yes, sir.
On the overtime, is that the reason? The reason why overtime is that we don't have enough people out there in the field?
It doesn't necessarily mean we don't have enough people out in the field. It just means that the court date fell on officers' days off. Therefore, we, of course, have to make it on that day. So we come in on our time off. We have to clock in for our court date, our court appearance, and then we can clock out at the end of our shift or at the end of our cases. So it doesn't necessarily mean that, we don't have enough officers in the field. It's just that officer is specific to that case, and we had to be there at that time.
Can I add something to the report? I just wanted to.
Can you say, excuse me, Ms. Ward, would you please state your name for the record? And do you have a button to raise your hand? A participant at the bottom of your screen? And then your participants will come up on the, hopefully on your right hand side, and then you can press the button that says raise hand.
Yeah,
you
I
see
just did.
it? Okay. All right, so state your name for the record and your comment, please.
Mary Lou Ward, Doñana County Animal Control and Code Supervisor. I just wanted to add to the report, March and April and probably going into May, we're going to see some of the numbers be a little bit lower on our end because of the COVID-19 and the response for the officers, since we are only responding to emergency type calls, sick or injured animals, vicious and or dangerous animals. We're just not going out for regular stray type animals. We're not impounding those type of animals at the shelter. And so we are trying to educate people on that to try to get those back or have those people keep those animals and find owners for them that way. So those numbers are going to be coming in lower. So you'll be seeing those numbers lower on that. So just so you won't be alarmed, just to give you a heads up on that. And as well as seeing our educational outreach, how I report it every month, you're not going to see me reporting it because all of those outreach programs have been put to a stop for right now.
Thank you, Ms. Ward. I do have a question for you. This is Yvonne Flores, the chair. So you're doing what the city's doing pretty much, not going after strays. And my question is, are you keeping a log of people who are calling to report strays? Do we know how many strays are out there? Because there is a concern. Joanne Ferrari, Representative Ferrari, was concerned that all these strays that aren't being picked up will propagate the population. So I'm just wondering if we're keeping a propagate, reproduce. So Are we keeping a record of that? We, I mean you and the city. So
Well, actually,
um,
that would be central dispatch, because if they're calling, they're going through central dispatch to report that. So central dispatch would have those numbers for us.
oh, good. So it'd be good to have that in the report next month, perhaps.
Okay,
Thank you.
I will add that. Thank you.
And thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Okay. So,
Madam Chair?
yes, Mayor Pro Tem Gandara, please.
Thank you, Mr. Lawrence and Ms. Ward, for the presentation and the additional comments. My questions are around the 3 miscellaneous holds, the 8, what that might entail. Yes, when you say miscellaneous holds, I'm not clear what that entails.
Yeah, I see it. I'm just trying to figure it out as well. I'm sorry.
Okay, no worries.
So the miscellaneous hold could be anything. Well, like right now we have a care and maintenance hold. We have injured animals hold, stray hold. So it could be a cruelty hold or something else other than that. Maybe we're just waiting for somebody to come in compliance on some other type of violation. So we're not really going to like keep that animal. We're not trying to, like, I guess it's not a vicious or anything too severe. We're just trying to, it's a miscellaneous type thing where we're just trying to hold it just long enough for that person to come into compliance, and then we're going to give it back. So that's what that's really going to entail.
Okay. My second question is about the rabies. You have 8 animals that are rabies. I'm thinking, can you explain further what that means? Is it they don't have the rabies shot and you had to pull them in, or they have rabies and you're quarantining them? Because you have 11 quarantine. And are those 8 a part of the 11? I'm not clear.
Those are separate. Those 8 are going to be at the shelter because they did not have an owner. And so usually an animal that bites somebody, and if it does not have an owner, we will quarantine at the shelter, because our facility is not an open facility for someone to come in and look for their animal and view it. So then in that case, the animal will be quarantined at the Animal Services Center until we find the owner for it. And if we find the owner for it and the animal can be moved, then the animal will be moved to our facility if it can be moved. If like the 11, those other 11, then they can be quarantined at our facility. Either they've all had an owner for whatever reason, and so we know who they are and they belong to our facility. Either those were bite quarantines, or actually they weren't all bite on that count. They were actually they were bite quarantines, but they were all held under a warrant with an owner.
So thank you, Mary. I'm concerned about the rabies. When you say 8 rabies, like they have rabies and you have to.
It's a quarantine by state statute. So an animal bites somebody, it's called a rabies quarantine. So all we're doing is observing them to make sure that they do not have rabies. So that's what we call it, a rabies quarantine.
Okay, got you. And then are you giving them the rabies shot?
At the end of the quarantine, they all get a rabies vaccination before they go out. Absolutely. They go to the shelter, they get vaccinated before they go back.
Go back to their
owner.
Okay, got you. I was starting to get concerned about, oh my gosh, are we seeing an uptick in rabies and during this time, to mention all the other stuff that we're having to deal with. So I just wanted to clarify. And let me see. I agree with Councilor Flores, Madam Chair, Flores, about getting those calls that you're not responding to because of the pandemic. That would be important numbers, I think, for us to think about. And if we have to, come together and really talk about what we're seeing, and the idea of propagating is right, something that we're trying to reduce. So how do we handle that? So
Right.
definitely would like to know more about those numbers. Mayor.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam. Uh-huh.
Any other questions for Mr. Lawrence or Ms. Ward? Thank you, Mr. Lawrence, and thank you, Ms. Ward. And next we'll move to the City Animal Control report.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. My name is Gino Jimenez. I'm the Animal Control Supervisor for the City of Las Cruces.
Good morning.
Good morning. I'm not sure, can you see my presentation on your screen?
No, I can't. Can anybody else see it?
No, I can't either, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Hey,
No.
Adrian, can you pull that up, please?
I don't have access to your PowerPoint. But, so did you click screen share on your computer?
I did right now.
Yeah, click that, and then you're gonna it should bring up a window where you select your PowerPoint. There you go. There you go. You got it.
It went on. Let me try to fix this real quick. Can you see it now? I'm on slide number 2.
Yes, you are.
Yes, we can see.
Okay, very good. So I'm going to try to do this as we would typically during our board meetings at the chambers. So for the month of March 2020, we responded to 414 stray calls. 239 of them were GOA, meaning the officer did not have any contact with that animal. 175 were apprehended. Of 144 were impounded at the shelter. Of those, 78 were dogs, 67 were cats. We were successful in field RTOing 30 animals, and we were unsuccessful in field RTOing 14, and those went to the animal shelter, and those are included in that number. So of those, we had a total of 44 identifiable animals. Here is our 3-year comparison. Of course, because we have reduced our total number of our types of calls that we will respond to, our numbers decreased from the mid-March to now. Here is our 3-year comparison for field RTOs. For the year, we have 93, and of course, like I said earlier, we have 30 for last month. These are our reasons for owner releasing of animals. Those are dogs that were showing aggression towards the family, and these were 4 different dogs from 4 different addresses. This is one of those that we have tried to reduce our intake, or to reduce the intake at the animal shelter. So we're doing some education. However, we are still intaking animals that pose a threat to the community or to the family members, and these 4 are an example of that. 2 of them were showing aggression towards the children, and 2 of them were showing aggression towards other family members. So at that time, they chose to redeem them or turn them over to the Animal Service Center. And finally, the 14 reasons we were unable to field RTO, there were 14 with no contact by phone or at the residence. Of those 14, there was 1 resident out of Sunland Park, which we can't go that far out of our jurisdiction. And the other one is the owner no longer lived at that address. But the other 12 were either because, or a combination, we weren't able to contact them by phone or at the home, so we had to take them to the Animal Service Center. Here is my stray map for the month of March. Hopefully, I can be more specific, can you see it now on your screen?
Yes.
Okay. In the past, I know that January and February, I wasn't able to present this in chambers because it's a read-only computer down there. So I'm doing this from my laptop, so it's kind of, or my desktop, so it's very interactive. These numbers that I show right here are for March of 2020. The blue signify dogs, stray dog calls. The orange are stray cat calls. And the little red dots, there's very few of them, but you can pick them out, I think. Those are for other animals. It could be a squirrel, a skunk, an owl, anything like that, anything other than a cat or a dog. If you would like to, I can go back and catch up to where I haven't been able to present this, so I can show you January and February's plots if you'd like.
Madam Chair, this is Cassandra Gandara. I think that would be excellent if everybody else is amenable to it.
Yeah, yes, please do, Mr. Jimenez.
Okay, very well. Give me a second because I have to go up here and manipulate it. So if you look at this screen right now, this shows all the stray animal calls so far this year. This includes January, February, and March. Yes, sir.
Can anybody, this is Clint Thacker at ASCMV, can anybody else see the screen he's talking about? Because I still see his PowerPoint presentation page.
I can see his stray map. This is Cassandra.
I can see his stray map, but it sounds like he's clicking on things and I can't, nothing's coming up. But because nothing changed when he changed the year or the months.
Gino, it's hard to switch screens like that during the presentation. A better avenue would be to see if we could find a way to print out the reports in PDF and then send them to the board members by month.
Okay, Madam Chair, I will take that into consideration and do that for my next report. However, for those that can see it, would you like me to move forward, or since not everybody is able to read it, stop right here?
Gino, I don't think anybody can see it but you, so I think I would recommend you stop.
Well, the only thing that I could see is, I'm looking at slide number 7. Was that the same as the one before? It looks the same, if there was one.
Madam Chair, no ma'am, I've clicked onto, like I tried to go to my January map. Obviously, I'm being told that you guys can't see that.
So we're still in your March?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I'm gonna try to click to the March to see if that will help. You'll hear me clicking, I'm sorry. So just so I know, can you see my March screen? It's not part of the slide, it's a separate part of the presentation.
It still hasn't changed, Gino.
It hasn't, yeah, it hasn't changed, you know.
Okay, I thought we would be able to do this from my desktop. I still have those permission issues then that I'll have to work with the GIS department. I will send those out month by month to all the board members so that you have an idea of where we were in January, February, and in March.
Madam Chair, if I might.
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem Gandara.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Gino. I'm impressed with the interactive, at least the March numbers. Now, you said it's very interactive. So can you talk about where the districts, I know they're not the same as our districts, at least for the city, but can you like click on, like there are some where you have quite like several of them. I'm hovering over, I guess that's west. You know, there's like a blotter of them and then it's kind of scattered, or the middle. Can you just sort of tell us by hitting on it where the areas are, what your interpretation of it is? I think that would be super important. But in addition, or finally, I should say, if you give this the Las Cruces.maps, now is that available for anybody to see? And why would we need individual ones? Like, I guess what I'm saying is that everybody in our community should have access to it so that they can see where the issues are. And then as commissioners and counselors and or board members, that we can refer people to this particular stray map so that it's interactive for them and us, so that it can be used as a resource. Is that possible?
Madam Chair, Mayor Pro Tem Gandara, I know that I have asked the GIS department for exactly what you're talking about to make it interactive on our webpage. However, because of permissions, it would require that individuals have an account with this GIS mapping, and that would be a tremendous undertaking because it is a privileged program for the GIS department. It wouldn't be allowable for people to come in and search for a specific address or click on one of the dots and try to figure out what animal was there or stuff like that, to be more researchable, if you will. That's why I present this only at council meetings or at advisory board meetings, because I have those permissions. So it would be too much for GIS to allow this across the board for everybody.
I can appreciate that. I think in the spirit of transparency, I think that's super important. I know of other GIS systems, one in particular that collects information and distributes information via a GIS study, if you will, on various things around public health matters, for example, alcoholism, or the number of therapists, if you will. It's all around the behavioral health thing. And so, David, is there a way that we can do this? You have other maps that are available via the city that people can go in and have an interactive sort of opportunity to view. Why is that not possible for us here?
Probably could be.
Madam Chair, I raised my hand.
Oh, yes.
Councilor Gondra and Gino and board members, I'll set up a separate meeting with Gino and the GIS staff to discuss the specifics, because board member Gondra, you're correct. There are public websites, public maps that are available. I don't see why we can't extract at the end of every month certain data. It at least shows it geographically by animal and by type. They may not be able to zoom in and share the detailed information that Mr. Jimenez may have, but I think we can work through those. He will probably always have access to a more detailed map, but we can make publicly a general vicinity map of each month's activities that they should be able to query by month or general vicinity over a period of time without getting the detail. There could be some privacy information if there's ownership information there that we wouldn't.
And I understand that, and I don't want to get into any privacy issues, but for example, the information for the pandemic that as city councilors we've been pushing to receive, right? Which is a zip code. It's very specific. You go in, it hovers, you can see that on the dashboard. I understand there's so I'm at least looking for an interactive map that people in our community, animal services board members, but also our community advocacy groups can look at to use and to, I just see it as such a powerful tool for everybody so that we can really get down to the strategies and solutions, because this was brought up because of the not only strays, but we also started talking about the cats, right, specific to a particular district. Everybody's aware that Councilor Vasquez feels it's very prominent specifically to his district, and we didn't know if that was accurate. And so those are things that I think the public should be aware of and be able to use to then affect positive outcomes. So I won't cover it, Madam Chair.
We will work through it.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, and thank you, Mr. Dollahan.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I'm not sure. Did somebody raise their hand? I don't have that option.
Oh, no one has raised their hand.
Okay, I will continue with the rest of my presentation. I believe this is my last slide. I will stand for any questions. Before I do, though, I would like to make a comment to a comment that was made earlier with a concern to Representative Ferrari's concern. Ma'am, we are still responding to stray calls within the city of Las Cruces. It is our opinion that those animals still pose a public threat, whether it's by biting or being in a roadway or because they can cause an accident, something like that. We are still responding to those types of calls. Anything that is still considered a public safety issue, we will still respond to. For example, late last week, we responded to a stray pit bull at the Walmart on South Valley. This dog was trying to bite people as they were trying to capture it. So of course we responded to that. And as the officers were attempting to catch it, it was in and out of traffic, causing even more of a public safety issue there. After about an hour, we were able to capture that dog. Luckily, it had a microchip. And after a short stay at the service center, it went home. But just to make that point that we are still responding to those public safety issues. We have, however, suspended our permitting programs. We aren't, at this point, we are not issuing permits for multi-animal site permits, our hen permits, feral cat colony permits, even our 4-H and FFA programs. We are asking citizens that they call our office and get put on the list. And once we have been given the all clear, we will reach out to those citizens then and set up appointments to begin our programs again, to go out and inspect those properties and issue them those permits that are required. So we have reduced the total number of calls that we have gone to, our services that we provide typically, but we haven't backed away from those public safety issues.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that clarification, Mr. Jimenez. I really appreciate that. Does anyone else have any questions or comments regarding Mr. Jimenez's presentation?
Yes, Madam Chair. This is
Yes, Councilor Abate-Stuvi.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Mr. Jimenez. I had two questions for you. The first one comes circling back to the that were released for aggression on the family members. When that happens, when they go to you, are they able to be kind of rehabilitated and sent off, or is that, do they have to be euthanized?
Madam Chair, Board Member Subi, at that point, when we pick them up and take them to the service center, that is a option for the Animal Service Center. When the owner signs the paperwork, they're basically releasing the animal from their custody, their property, and giving it to the Animal Service Center. The center then will make the determination whether it's in the best interest to euthanize a dog, rehabilitate it, retrain it, whatever means they seem fit for that animal.
Okay. And then I guess the question is for you then, Clint, when those animals get to you, what are the usual outcomes for those animals?
And I hope you can hear me. My speaker's saying that I'm having issues.
We can hear you.
Great. It's all on a case-by-case basis for that. I mean, if we always look at the conditions, you know, if they say the animal is biting my child while it eats or while the dog eats, well then, is that really an issue, education issue there of leaving the kid alone? You know, the dog runs after my kids and chases the kids and bites their heel, and it's a healer. Well, we need to talk about hurting animals and something that's been bred into them for thousands of years. So it's all on a strictly a case-by-case basis. We've had some that come in and they are very aggressive, and we do end up euthanizing those animals. But we have others that come in where we cannot replicate the behavior at all, and we place them up for adoption. When we do, or when the animals are looked at, it's full disclosure. You say this animal is turned over for aggression, or this animal has this bite history or this aggression history.
And do we track, I don't know if we track those outcomes from the animal services to where yours are to see, we know that the 4 animals came in, and then if we track it on your end too, were they able to be adopted out, or, you know, whatever that final result was for that animal?
All I would need for that is to have the animal ID number. So if Gino has that information, I can for sure tell you where those 4 dogs come from. I don't think, well, we might be able to run a report on owner surrenders and get it that way as well.
Okay, thank you. And then I'm not sure how long this situation is going to last, at least probably that we're in. One of the things that our community development department has done to be able to do kind of the inspections has been able to use media. Sorry, that's my door. And I'm not sure if that's an option for us to consider or think about. Should this be kind of a more long-term case? Is there a way that we can use video streaming of something so that we can still do those types of inspections? It's just a thought. I'm not sure what it would take to be able to do that, but just thinking long-term, if we still need to get that sort of programming, still have a bit of movement. So thank you.
Madam Chair, Councilman Stuvey, to answer your question, once we begin or we kickstart or restart our permitting program, the only issue there would be that we have to actually go out and inspect the property. So that's going to be kind of hard to do that from a video, a streaming type of inspection. We actually have to go out. So, you know, things are changing though. I'm not saying that it's totally impossible. We're going to have to adapt. You know, all of us are going to have to adapt, and there may be some changes that come later on for us to keep being able to do what we do. So who knows what's going to come in the future.
Thank you. Yeah, we've been having to adapt, you know, with home inspections too, which I know require a high level of, you know, care during that, and they've been able to use that video streaming for that. So it's just an idea of something, should this be more of a long-term issue, we might want to consider what options we have available.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Councilor Levitas-Stuvey. Thank you, Mr. Jimenez. Any other questions?
Yes, Madam Chair, I'm sorry, I have my hand up as well.
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem Gandara. I see your little blue hand.
My little blue hand.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask about I waited a little bit because usually Councilor Abeta Stuvi picks up all the questions. But at this point, the one the one animal that was from Sunland Park, and you had indicated you didn't have, you couldn't go out that far. Now, is that because of the jurisdiction and or time and resources? Or at that point, do you communicate with the county to say, hey, we have this animal, and is there a process or a protocol in place to do that? Or is that left entirely up to the Animal Services Center?
Madam Chair, Mayor Pro Tem Gandara, to answer your question, we only have, City of Las Cruces Animal Control only has jurisdiction within the city. We do have authority if we are chasing an animal into Doña Ana County. At that point, we would give Doña Ana County Animal Control a courtesy call to let them know that we are in their jurisdiction, and just to let them know that in case something comes up later on, that why is Animal Control chasing animals or trying to apprehend animals in the county. So we're not basically stepping on anybody's toes. And also, if Doña Ana County has anybody available in that area, they may be able to come and assist us to capture that stray animal that goes into a different jurisdiction. However, because we are limited to our own jurisdiction, there's the liability issues of going outside, especially for something like owner releasing an animal, especially all the way down to Sunland Park. So I will take into consideration your suggestion that we have never thought about that, is maybe contacting Doña Ana County Animal Control and seeing if they can't relay it back to their owner. I've never even thought about that, to be honest with you.
Good. I would be happy to have the conversation. I mean, we meet once a month. We have this collaboration. You have Mary on the line most. In fact, at every meeting, it would be a really good thing to develop a protocol in place, to when those opportunities arise. I think all for the sake of not having the animal enter into the center. My second question is around the 14 unsuccessful attempts and what they entailed. I mean, what are the reasoning behind the unsuccessful attempts? I think would be really important to have, Gino, and sort of, I guess I continue to push the envelope a little bit in terms of what our ordinances say. I know that that the city ACO has a great concern as far as liability to leave an animal in a yard or with under 18, a child, if you will. And so having those reasons, the unsuccessful attempts would be important to me.
Chairman and Mayor Pro Tem Gandara, if you look at, I think I have my screen number 6 up. So I have it listed as the 14 that were unable to field RTO. And with the exception of the 2, so 12 of them will say there was no contact by phone. Our policy or our practice is that if the dog or the animal has a microchip, we will try to contact that person by phone initially. If they're home, perfect, we'll tell them, hey, Mr. Smith, I'm coming to your home. I picked up Fido. I'll be en route to your home within a few minutes. That's our first attempt. If we can't make contact there, basically if the chip is registered, it comes back with the address. The officer will make the second attempt and go to the home and try to field RTO it there. If for some reason nobody's home, then our only option at that point is to impound the animal at the service center.
Got it. Okay. All right. Thank you, Gino. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Gandara and Mr. Jimenez. Any other questions on Mr. Jimenez?
Madam Chair, this is Commissioner Sanchez.
Yes, Commissioner Sanchez.
Mr. Jimenez, just curious, and I may missed this earlier on when you were on the slide for the RTO. Did you make contact with the owner that was in Sunland Park, or was it just the address that was listed for the microchip?
Madam Chair, Board Member Sanchez, that we were unable to make contact by phone with that resident, and then the address came back as Sunland Park. So because of our jurisdictional bounds, that animal was impounded at the center.
Okay, and the only reason I ask is I think so often one of the things that people may overlook is, although they get when they come and adopt or get their microchip, is when they relocate or they move, that they forget to update the information. And hopefully at least the phone number is still good, but I just thought I'd ask, because perhaps that might be an incident where you all found them in the city because maybe they relocated to the city. But if obviously if you don't have that information, it doesn't do you any good, and it doesn't help them get their friend back. So I just wanted to ask that question. Thank you.
Madam Chair, Board Member Sanchez, that's an excellent point. Excellent point, because if you relocate, one of the requirements is that you update your microchip information, because using the example that you just made, had they relocated into Las Cruces, we would have been able to field RTO that animal without it going to the center. So that's an excellent point. I wish everybody would update their information on the microchip registry whenever any changes are made.
I appreciate that information. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Madam Chair.
And thank you, Commissioner Sanchez. That was a great question. And thank you for your answer, Officer Jimenez. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Officer Jimenez, for your presentation. So we'll go on to our next item, which is shelter statistics by Clint Thacker.
Madam Chair,
Yes, is that
Commissioner Ellens.
oh, Commissioner Ellens? Oh,
I was finally able to get on about a half hour ago.
oh, good. Thank you for joining us.
Okay,
You have a question?
so I don't.
You just want to check in with us?
Just wanted to let you know I'm here.
Great, thank you, thank you.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, board members. First of all, I want to say thank you so much for all you do. I mean, as I was talking with Councilor Gonda this morning before this started, he's talking about special meetings, regular board meetings, and I'm sure the county commissioners are the same way. You guys are extremely busy. I just appreciate your dedication to this board. I know it'd be so easy to say that things are going so well, or I'm just going to overlook this one. So I just appreciate your commitment to us and continual service. So thank you very much. As we go forward here in the director's report, you're going to see some numbers that are pretty crazy, and we're happy about those numbers. First of all, this first one is the animal count in the shelter. As of yesterday, we had 197 animals in the center. Look at 2019 compared to 492. So we are a silver lining to all of this COVID-19 pandemic issue is that less animals are coming into the center, more animals are leaving the center, and that means we have an opportunity for a healthier herd, healthier population, and also a lot less staff burnout as well. And we hope, as going forward, that we'll continue to implement these changes as we go forward on us. So some of our intake, you'll see, and it's compared to the 716 in 2019 to the 528. And at any time, if my speaker goes out, please let me know. It's saying I have I'm having a hard time connecting. So just give me a holler and we'll figure something out. The outcomes, 2019 versus 2020. You can see there, adoptions are almost the same, reclaims, rescues, everything's in line. Community cats is a lot lower because we're no longer participating in community cats in the city. And euthanasia was higher in 2020 for the month of March. So it leaves us a live release rate, or the euthanasia is higher because we don't participate in those community cats, is the number one reason. The live release rate then is 87.1%. So that means 87% of the animals that came into the shelter in March left alive. And that's compared to the 92.7% in 2019. Our March surgeries, it was cut short, so it's a little bit lower number, 185. And our total visitors in March is 1,951. Compare that to last March of 2,430. On Facebook, I got a reminder that this week was the week that we moved into the shelter, into the brand new area of the shelter. So I'm assuming that's why that number is so high, is because of people coming in to see the new center. And also the numbers are so low is because of the COVID-19, where people are starting to, in March, people were starting to stay home more. And that's my presentation. Are there any questions?
Any questions by anybody? Okie dokie. So thank you, Mr. Thacker. Thank you very much for your presentation. We'll move on to the next item, which is committee reports. Mr. Dollahan, does the Finance Committee have anything to report? Mr. Dollahan?
Coming online, Madam Chair, sorry. First, this technology takes us a little time to switch. I also have a cat at home that may not appreciate this meeting. So I'm in turn with Amador Espinoza. We did have a board meeting, a committee meeting this week. That was on Tuesday afternoon. Commissioner Abeyta-Stuvey, Counselor Abeyta-Stuvey and Commissioner Sanchez were able to join me, along with Clint and city staff, and County Manager Macias was able to join us as well. County Manager Macias's participation is related to the budget, and that's on your action items later. So I'll turn the monthly report over to Amador, which was included in your packet, and we'll run through those really quick. And then I'll follow up with some other action items that we're going to discuss as a result of the Finance Committee meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Dollahan.
Amador, the show is all yours.
Mr. Espinoza? Are you there? Seems like he's not there. Hello?
Adrian, can you turn on Amador's microphone? Amador, are you there?
Yes, I appreciate it. Thank you, sir. Madam Chair, ladies and gentlemen of the board, my name is Amador Espinoza. I am one of the accountants for the city of Las Cruces, and I will be presenting the Animal Service Center of the Mesilla Valley, unaudited March 31st, 2020's financial statements. So looking at number one of your financial packet and looking at our PowerPoint presentation, the general fund, the statement of net position, your cash is at 247,000. Your receivables is at 91,000. 88,000 of that is due from Doña Ana County. 2,200. Yes.
I don't. Are we seeing your screen?
I shared the screen with you guys.
All right. Hold on.
Actually, I don't have it up on my screen.
here on the screen that's before me, it says I can stop sharing and I can re-share it again. Let's see, let's do that. And then, you guys see it now?
Oh,
There it is.
There it is, okay.
Yes. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair, ladies and gentlemen of the board. So so looking at the general fund, which is your page 1 of your financial packets, your cash is at 247,000. Your accounts receivables is at 91,000. 88,000 of that is due from the Doñana County. Normally around this time we receive the payment, but I think since we're having a lot of the staff for the treasury side of the department working from home, they more than likely they haven't posted the payment. 2,000 is due from the city of Anthony for animal intakes, and 280 is due from the city of Sunland Park. Liabilities are at 66,000. 4,000 of that is due to vendors, which will be paid in the month of April. 61,000 that is payroll liabilities, and there's $505 remaining of the Best Friends grant. Your unassigned fund balance is at 271,000. Still on page number 1 of your packets, you have a restricted cash balance, a fund balance of $3,600. Moving on to pages 2 and 3 of your financial packets. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Espinosa, excuse me for interrupting, but my screen shows that you're on page 4, which says change in net position. Is that the one we should be on since you're?
Yes, ma'am. I just moved it over to change in that position. So the previous pages, let me go back, which would be slide numbers 2 and slides number 3. Those are statements of net position. So that's basically your balance sheet. And then when I move over to your slide number 4, that is the change in that position, which is a combination of pages, I believe 2 and 3 on your financial packets. And that's basically is your revenues, expenditures, and your change in that position. Madam Chair, may I proceed?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Hold on, let's go back here real quick. So total revenues for the month of March is $2,166,000, and total expenditures is $1,195,000. You have a net change of $93,330 after transfers. Your budget parameter for the month of March is 75%. So total revenues, the aggregate total revenues is at 75.6%. And your total expenditures are at 70.4%. Looking at specific expenditure line items, just things to take note of. Temporary services are at 88.7%. Again, where the animal care center is working on being fully staffed. And then purchase services are at 79.6%. And those are medical supplies that are being purchased from Index Distribution and from the MWI Veterinary Supplies. Looking at page number 4, that is a monthly analysis of your revenues and expenditures. And in supplement, we've created this new graph that's in front of you. It's called the revenues and expenditures graph. So the data points that are in green represent your monthly revenues, and your data points that are in red are your monthly expenditures. So that kind of gives you an idea of what your page 4 is pointed out in that graph presentation. So for example, for the month of July, we had revenues of $568,000 and your expenditures were at $150,000. And then moving forward right in the center, for the month of November, your revenues were at $200,000 and your expenditures were $195,000. So that just kind of gives you, the increases and decreases and how the monthly revenue and expenditures look. We've also prepared another graph for you all, and this is just a percentage of total expenditures. So as we've mentioned, your year-to-date expenditures are at $1,995,000. So 74% for your personnel makes 74% of that 1,995,000. Services is about 11% of those expenditures, and 8% of supplies is 8% is supplies is 8% of that 1,195,000.
Madam Chair, this is Clint Thacker, ASCMV.
Yes, Mr. Thacker.
I just want to comment on one thing that Amador said about 4 slides ago. He made us mention that Animal Services is trying to be full staff when talking about temporary workers. We have a hiring freeze. We're not hiring anybody right now, and we don't have any temporary workers at the center. Haven't had for about a month now. So I just want to clarify that. And we did those actions to cover the 9 unfunded positions. If you remember right, that was 2 items that we did do to fund those unfunded positions that were found.
Thank you, Mr. Thacker. And Mr. Espinosa, you may continue.
Okay, so Madam Chair, members and ladies and gentlemen of the board, so that does conclude our presentation. We did prepare those 2 new graphs for you all. We hope you like them. If you'd like to see some changes, please let us know, and we will try to do everything possible to, improve on our presentation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Espinosa. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Espinosa? No questions?
Madam Chair.
On to the next item, which is the executive report.
You have a question from someone, and I needed to discuss.
Oh, pardon. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Yes, Councilor Betastubi.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Mr. Espinosa. During our finance meeting, we had discussed briefly that there was some, and I believe it happened last year, but uncollected administration fees that had happened. Can you explain that more to the board, please?
Madam Chair, ladies and gentlemen of the board, so the administrative fees, that is the administrative fee that the city of Las Cruces charges the animal service. During the FY19, those administrative fees were waived, and they were also waived for FY20. And so what that did is that basically increased your net change in fund balance. Starting in FY21, I believe, as the executive staff and the governing board have been working on developing a budget, those administrative fees, those fees that the city of Las Cruces charges animal services for the upkeep of the general ledger, running payrolls, posting cash receipts, the writing of the financial statements and dealing with the auditors, that will be included in the FY21 budget.
And we don't share any of those costs with the county that's all from the city then?
No, ma'am, we don't. And I think part of the reason is that because we actually house the animal center's general ledger. We house all their transactions, everything that is being processed. So we process all the accounts payable, the payments, disbursements that are dispersed to the vendors, the payroll, any journal entries, some of the procurements and assistance that we provide to the animal care center.
Madam Chair, Board Member Abeyta, if I may answer that, it's not just the financial portions of it, that's the fiscal agency responsibilities under the Joint Powers Agreement. It also covers IT support and human resources support, those administrative functions within the city organization. They help with onboarding, they help with hiring. So Clinton, his staff do all of the selection process on the employees. It's those behind the scenes functions that still need to provide support for. Those 2 actions at the end of FY19 and for the FY20 budget was to, one, balance the books and to make the budget work, not taking into account for the missed 9 positions. The city does need its administrative fees, and those are covered in the joint powers agreement. It's going to be tight in the budget, as you will see. So, and we're going to have to revisit the budget early in the start of the new fiscal year.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, if I may, with the rest of the financial report, there was some discussion about needing to follow up with, I think it's Sunland Park and Anthony, on those billings that we've sent to them. That needed to be coordinated with the finance staff of the city and center staff. That was requested to be done. And then there was also to re-review the budget on revenues and operating expenses to bring forward hopefully a budget adjustment at next month's meeting for the current budget. So those are items that we needed to follow up on. And that concludes the finance report, ma'am.
Well, I do have a question, Mr. Dullahan, based on what you just said right now. So the budget that we will, the budget that was reviewed, that we reviewed, or the proposed budget is going to be looked at again by your committee, the finance committee?
No, ma'am, we looked at it earlier this week at the finance committee meeting.
And made proposed changes?
Staff at the ASCMV working with the budget office needed to make changes to the budget to present to you in the resolution on the agenda today.
Great. Okay, thank you for that clarification. Thank you for your answer. Any other questions? I don't see anybody's hand up, so the executive committee has nothing to report at this time. Facilities chair, committee chair Cassandra Gandara, do you have anything to report?
No, nothing to report, but I promise next month we will get on doing at least a virtual facilities meeting. Clint and I had sort of talked about it, and then we just sort of, I lost track, and so I need to get back on that. So I promise I'll have one for next month.
Thank you. Well, Clint and I did talk about a finance committee meeting, but it's at this point, I think we had discussed everything previously. And anyway, so okay. Thank you very much, Mayor Pro Tem Gandara. Next on the agenda is CFPP report.
Madam Chair.
Who presents that report? There's no name next to the agenda here.
Madam Chair, this is Clint Thacker, ASCMV.
Yes.
I just want to point out really quick for the facilities, we do have a current HVAC project that is happening. They've had some weather delays that's legitimately pushed it back a little bit. They're having some issues where the units that they ordered have the intake coming out the back, and they ordered items or the venting piping that connects on the side. So there's some mix up on the correct items to order. Things are getting worked out, and they're getting those installed. I believe the end completion totally completed with the roof, and the HVAC is July right now, the time of July. So we're excited the project is still working forward. The other big part is it's very little, it's not very intrusive. Every now and then we have to clear a kennel out, but with our low numbers, that's easily done. And we had to relocate, or we're going to have to relocate Dr. Haddon's office for just a little bit as they tear out some of the ductwork in her office. But other than that, it's nothing like it was when we were doing reconstruction. So we're excited, and it continues to move forward at a good pace.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Thacker. We'll move on to the CFPP report. And who reports on that? I don't see a name.
Madam Chair, that's usually Jean Gilbert, and I believe she's online.
Okay, Ms. Gilbert?
And I can get her PowerPoint up if she cannot.
Ms. Gilbert, are you there? Jean?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you. We can hear you.
Okay, great.
Okay, did you hear
And
what Clint said? He said that he could put your PowerPoint up. Are you not able to do that?
yes, thank you.
All right, working on it right now.
If he can't, I can go ahead and give the animal welfare group report.
Would you like Clint to put it up for you?
Yes.
Okay, can you do that, Mr. Thacker?
Yes, ma'am. Should be up there now.
Okay, well, here's a listing of organizations for this month's report. Okay, and if you could turn it, please.
If we could have everybody, possibly Adrian, if you could leave everybody, that might help us.
Here are some of the activities on behalf of the coalition. Rick and I had a meeting February the 24th, and we attended, which was the last task force meeting that was in person, which was February the 28th. And I met with Laura Connor, Shaw's director, February 26th. And I also met with Sue Peterson, Two Hearts, Four Paws, on March the 3rd. And those are the projects that we are working on now. Please turn. Sorry for the sound issue. I don't know if it's on my end or not.
Jean, do you have another device that you're listening? If you could mute that.
I don't. Okay, let me try. I think I lost the sound altogether. Two Hearts, Four Paws. Pictured here is Labrador Shadow, who's one of the 35 dogs at Two Hearts, Four Paws Refuge. And he recently had surgery for a torn ACL injury, and the cost was over $2,000. And this slide is just an example of some of the expenses that local groups incur for the medical treatment of animals that they rescue and help. You could turn, okay, here we are. APA, the brindle colored dog on the left was one of 7 newly born puppies that were dumped on the side of the road in Anthony. And our shelter contacted APA, and the puppies went into foster as bottle babies. And thanks to everyone, including the Good Samaritan who found the puppies and the animal agencies, APA's fosters and partners, these puppies went to Underground Express, transporting some of the puppies, where this one found a home in Wisconsin. And Tilly, pictured right, was pregnant when she was relinquished to the shelter and was soon told by APA, who reached out to I'm Almost Home Rescue. And that rescue cared for Tilly while her puppies were born. And then afterwards, they placed Tilly in a good home. APA had 32 transfers for the month of February. And these are APA cats. The majority of animals rescued by APA, like the cats pictured here, are from the shelter. Their intake for January and February was 27, with 65 adoptions for those months. All APA's animals adopted are microchipped, and public microchips for animals belonging to the community members for January and February totaled 33. This information is in your packet with the report. Broken promises. The kitten pictured left was born to a feral mom, and one of several pulled by broken promises from the shelter and adopted. The middle photo shows a double adoption, and the picture was taken at PetSmart, where Broken Promises has been running the cattery and adoption center there. But because of COVID-19, the adoption center there has been closed. The photo on the right is one of the many felines who've been TNR'd by Broken Promises so far this year. And as Broken Promise notes, TNR and cat rescue are rewarding pursuits, but come with considerable expense. Spay-neuter surgeries and health care for community cats cost them over $19,000 last year. As advocates and members of the coalition, we hope that the resources are there for Broken Promises and other groups to fund their programs and services, especially during these difficult times. Cats Meow. This is Cats Meow. Cats Meow had an amazing number of adoptions for February. The names of all of them are listed on this wipe-off board pictured left, with a blue arrow pointing to the photo of Rika and Kari snuggled together. They were a double adoption. In addition to the amazing number of adoptions, Cats Meow has just from their facility alone last year had 124 adoptions. Their transports were 70 last year, and within a transport there could be 8 to 20 cats per transport. So they've really done an amazing job. And the stats are in your packet. Cherished canines. The black lab, middle bottom, was one of 4 puppies found in a ditch and reported to Cherished Canines. All were fortunately rescued by Cherished Canines and later adopted. However, this one, due to back leg injuries and paralysis from being thrown from probably a car or something through a lengthy rehabilitation period, and stayed with Cherished Canines for a few years before being adopted, and is seen here with her new family. Chanel, the black and white dog, is pictured here with her family, but not long ago she was orphaned with 7 litter mates when the mom dog was hit and killed by a car. Chanel was 3 weeks old when the owners relinquished her and siblings to the shelter. The shelter reached out to Cherished Canines, and the litter was split between 2 fosters. All of Chanel's litter mates went to a rescue in Colorado, and Chanel from the shelter asking if they could keep this litter. We sent a foster over to pick them up, and the litter was split up among 2 foster families. who did an amazing job. All of Chanel's litter mates went to the rescue in Colorado. I'm sorry, I think I've repeated myself. And I wanted to add about Cherished Canines that they rescued 469 dogs in 2019. And they had 128 adoptions in 2019. Here is, yeah, we can go to Diana County Humane Society now. This announcement was made February the 25th. And they received a $52,500 grant from PetSmart Charities to increase affordable veterinary care access here in Diana County. And listed are their other programs, Animal Relief Fund, Pets for Seniors, and Rough to Ready. Humane Society of Southern New Mexico. Pictured is HSNM President Frank Bryce and board member Jeff Murphy with foster dog Fred at an adoption event. And HSNM has been holding adoption promotions the second Saturday of the month at PetSmart, but of course those have been suspended. HSNM has adopted 3 cats and I believe it's about 7 dogs at this point. Little Nacho, pictured right, is a Chihuahua and is an adoption from 2019. And he's pictured here with his owner, Debbie Hans, who's HSNM's webmaster. And she's shown here at a Critter Connection session that we held at the Boys and Girls Club. And pictured on the next slide is Frank Bryce at a Check the Chip event, which was March the 7th. Check the Chip events are hosted by Uncaged Paws, led by Kelly Barker, who's pictured far right, with their team members staffing the booth. And HSNM, Frank Bryce and Jeff Murphy did the implanting. 54 microchips were implanted and registered, and 3 previously microchipped animals had their registration information updated. The plan before the COVID-19 was to hold microchip events the first Saturday of the month, but those have been suspended. And the next slide is spay and neuter numbers are reflected in all the adoption numbers that are reported by animal groups and are compiled for your packets. They are also reflected in the number of animals that are transported to rescue, because the majority of those animals are spayed and neutered unless they are too young. SNAP issued 463 spay and neuter vouchers for the month of January and February. And that's the end of the PowerPoint. Sorry for the audio problem.
Madam Chair, I think I saw you talking or speaking, but you're on
mute. Thank you, Commissioner Sanchez, and thankyou, Ms. Gilbert, for your presentation. I appreciate your work and your love and compassion. Mr. Thacker, did you have your hand up? I guess you did.
I put it back down.
Okay. Okay. Any questions for Ms. Gilbert? Yes, Councilor.
I just had a question. Given the changes that we've had with the animal service is about what we intake. Are you all seeing a lot more intakes for you all as well? And how are your levels?
You're talking about the Humane Society of Southern New Mexico or animal groups in general?
Animal groups in general. So we've made changes at the shelter on what we are accepting at the shelter. Have you all seen a larger number of people to place animals with your agencies?
That's my sense. There has been an increase in requests for intake by the local groups, and trying to find more fosters. And I'll try to have those numbers for the next report.
Thank you. I think that would be good for us to track as well. And thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for your question, Councilor Bejas-Duvian. Thank you for your answer, Ms. Gilbert. I think we would all like to see a report on those increases. Any other questions? Thank you again, Ms. Gilbert. And we'll move on to our action items. Resolution 2010, adopt new leave and work policies regarding emergency paid sick leave and emergency family and medical leave expansion. Who's presenting on this?
Madam Chair, I can comment on that. This is Clint Thacker, Animal Service Center, Mesilla Valley. What?
There you go.
Yeah, it was just a continuation of the federal laws that changed, and we would like to adopt those to stay in accordance with them. Pretty much it's stating that it's not letting the extraordinary leave exhaust. So that stays good until the home order or the stay-at-home order is completed.
Oh, okay.
So it's the exact same city has.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Yes, Mr. Dolan.
These were mandated under the Families First response to COVID Act that went into place April 2nd. These are in addition to what was previously adopted as extraordinary leave and quarantine leave. Those are extraordinary leave remains in place. Quarantine leave is essentially suspended because of these two leaves. One is an emergency sick leave act for those that end up being quarantined as a direct result of COVID. It clarifies that leave. And then the other one is an extension of the Family and Medical Leave Act, specifically related to child care, not related to a health incident, but related to child care. Emergency sick leave is for 2 weeks, related to essentially the quarantine, and the extended family and medical leave is 10 weeks after a 2-week period, and there is a special process related to that. And these are just to come in compliance with the federal law.
Thank you for that explanation. Do I have a motion to pass this resolution? To adopt the resolution? Motion?
Commissioner Sanchez, so moved.
Second?
Cassandra Gantara.
Thank you. So it was moved by Commissioner Manuel Sanchez and seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Cassandra Gandara to adopt Resolution 2010, which is in compliance with the federal law. Mr. Dollahan, will you do a roll call on this?
Madam Chair, Board Member Gonzalez?
Oh.
I'm starting the roll call. Sorry, ma'am.
What about Board Member Gonzalez?
I'm calling the roll. He's on the line.
Oh, perdón. I thought you were recognizing him to say something. Okay, sorry.
Board Member Gonzalez,
Yes.
Board Member Abeda Stuvey,
Yes.
Board Member Gondara,
Yes.
Board Member Sanchez,
Yes.
Chairperson Flores.
Yes.
Motion carries, Madam.
Madam Chair?
David,
Yes.
also Commissioner Ellens.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Mr. Dahlin.
Alan's on the line too.
Sorry, Commissioner Ellen.
Mr. Who wants to speak?
Lynn Allen.
Yes, Mr. Allens, Commissioner, Chair, Commissioner Allens.
He was not included in the vote.
I need to follow up with Commissioner Ellens. Adrian, can you unmute his microphone for him? Board Member Ellens, what's your vote on this resolution?
Yes.
All right, sorry. I'll try to remember Board Member Ellens.
Just a reminder, I'm gonna unmute the unmute the phone call-ins, but if they can mute their own phone when they're not talking. Thank you.
All right, so the next resolution is 2020-11, contract piggyback for MWI Veterinary Supply Company, DBA MWI Animal Health. Do I have a motion to adopt that resolution?
Ramon Gonzalez, motion yes.
And do I have a second?
Second.
Was that by Commissioner Ellens? It was moved by Commissioner Gonzalez and second by Commissioner Ellens.
Yes.
Any discussion? May I have a roll call on this since there is no discussion? Can we have a roll call, a vote on this? Mr. Dullahan?
Yes, Madam Chair. Commissioner Ellens,
Yes.
Commissioner Gonzalez,
Yes.
Commissioner Councilor Abeda Stuvey,
Yes.
Councilor Gondara,
Yes.
Commissioner Sanchez,
Yes.
Board Member Flores.
Yes.
Your motion carries.
Thank you. Down to the last action item, Resolution 2020-12, adopt the ASCMV FY 2021 annual budget. Do I have a motion?
I'd like to have some, I don't know if it's my place, Quinn Packer Animal Services, but we have a presentation on this to show the severe changes that we had to make to this budget item, or to the budget.
So,
Madam Chair, so moved. You didn't get the motion.
yeah, let's do the motion and then you can do the presentation, please, Mr. Becker. So yes, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. So
Commissioner Sanchez, and I'll second.
thank you. So moved by Mayor Pro Tem Casablandara and seconded by Commissioner Manuel Sanchez. Mr. Becker will present on this.
Yes,
Do you have
ma'am.
a point on this?
Yes, ma'am.
I didn't. I don't think I got it. Maybe I did. Yes, I did. Thank you. Sorry. Okay.
All right, so in the facilities meeting, or the finance meeting we had on Tuesday, it was the county was going to be doing a straight rollover from this year's budget to next year's budget. And because the JPA shows that they have to be, the city and county have to be the same, that means that the city was willing or was going to also do the direct rollover. It was asked by me, what is this going to do to the center?
Mr. Becker, your sound is going in and out. I don't know what's going on.
Commissioner Gonzalez, if you can mute your phone whenever you're not talking, you just keep coming across.
Adrian, I think it's actually better if you would mute it for him.
Yeah, if I mute it for him though, we won't know when he needs to talk. But I mean, I can, because he's on a landline phone or just a regular phone.
Adrian, if you do it while at least Clint's doing the presentation, and then we can open him back up for questions.
Yes,
Okay.
please. Yeah. Thank you, Adrian. And thank you, David, for that excellent
Yes.
idea. Yes, Mr. Thacker, continue.
So some of the changes we had to make to make this new budget work is we are not going to be looking at getting the operations manager that we discussed. We are going to keep the kennel supervisor under the director, and it's exactly how it is now. Have an assistant kennel supervisor and their individuals there. And I can also share, at the end of the presentation, I can talk about the main highlights of what this means to us. So the ASCMV positions, you can look at here, currently there's 11 vacant positions, and under the new budget, it's basically where we are now is a hiring freeze. So we will not be adding any additional employees or hiring to fill these vacancies. I can tell you that with the number of animals that are in the center currently, and that's kind of how we budgeted, is we're looking at going this way we are now forward, with increases, slight increases from where we can, like intake of strays, spay, neuter surgeries, that type of thing. But for the most part, we will not be hiring any new individuals. We do have some position changes that we're going to be doing, and these are the same as we talked about before. Veterinarian assistant, we're going to change that person's title to veterinarian technician, because that person is a certified veterinarian technician. And assistant kennel supervisor, that's a vacant position, and Curtis Herring, who's currently our kennel population manager, is going to be filling in the assistant kennel supervisor position. And then the administration operations manager, which is Bernice, we're going to change her title to the admin services manager. So just title changes is all we're going to be doing under the new budget.
So anything else remains the same, Mr. Thacker?
No, it does not. And we'll get into the light items here in just a moment. That will show the changes. Overall, the operating revenue shows just a 0.4% decrease from this year or for the new budget year. And here's a quick breakdown of the revenue, showing the percentage of change. Pet licensing, and these are all done by trends that we're showing. And these, yeah, I'm sorry, so going by trends. So the vaccinations, we still have a little bit of money where we could possibly do our spay neuter clinic, but if we were to do those, then we need to find money from other places. And so that's why you see that 174% increase. On-site adoptions looking to go up, and again, these are all done by trend. We've discussed previously about the return to owner rate of the city and the county, and how there's such a large difference there between the two. And if the more big one on here is the Doña Ana County support. In other words, the money they pay will stay at 1.25 million. So just like it was this year. And the next slide is a continuation of the same thing. So the city of Las Cruces will stay the same at 1.25. Same with the city of Anthony, Sutherland Park, and Village of Hatch. We're going to keep those the same, expecting same impounds coming from them. But again, no large changes as far as the revenue. We have some expected to go down, like other state grants, things like that. So operation expenses, we show only a 0.3% increase, but that does come at some significant costs. This is a pie graph that's showing just the percentages of What again? The classified, is this the personnel? That's the number one expense that we have. The admin salaries, and then para and so on. Shows the percentage of what that is for our budget. So this is our operating cost changes. Admin salaries are going to be decreasing 29% because that's $372,000. What that is that includes the percentage raise for me, and also deferred raise for me. And also that's where we had if you remember, we had an operations manager we were going to have. That's where their salary was as well. So that's why that's such a large drop there. Classified employees to looking at going up. And that's because we added, if you look down the next line, the part-time regular, the 40,000, that is, there's only one employee, and we don't know why they're classified as a part-time regular, so they're going to be going up into classified. So that's the majority of that increase there. And then contract employees, we took down, those are our veterinarians. So we have to have less veterinarian time, which means less surgeries. So that's cut by 23%. Standby pay is something that we've never done before. That's why there's a 0 in fiscal year 20. If you remember right, this is because I've had in the past managers coming in after hours and euthanizing for animal control officers when they get an injured or a sick animal. So we have staff here at the center that's able to bear that load. So we have to pay them the standby pay to be on call, basically. Our scheduled overtime was decreased by 43%, and that's scraping the barrel on that. It's going to be so close for those. The Medicare, Social Security, and para, we have no control over. Those are the same. Same with the pension, dental, health, workers' comp. The cell phone and vehicle allowance, that's something that I get and some of the employees here get because they use their cell phone. The reason why it's 0 in fiscal year 20 is because we were not tracking it as its own line item. So we were able to take that out of where it was and make it its own line item so we can better track it. And disability, those things that we can't control. The temp agency services, the reason why that's a 0 is because before it was down in our operations, it was up in the personnel. And so we dropped it down into operations costs for the $25,900. So this is a pie chart, again, that shows just the major expense categories, not all of them. You'll see there supplies, advertising, medical, professional tech services. That is the tests for our veterinarian, and vaccines. Purchase services general are anytime we purchase a service like bug spray, individual coming spraying for bugs, armored carrier for our finances, etc. Admin charges for the city because they do handle, like we've talked today about, all of our hiring and our finances and many other things they do for us. And then other is everything else. So everything like utilities, to pay for the building, building maintenance, everything that wasn't mentioned here is all grouped into other, and you'll see that on these upcoming slides. So supplies general, we reduced it down to 47% is what we cut it down to. Software is one of those items that's in other, and that went down because we're not going to be adding in some of the employees. We don't need the software license for 1 or 2, so we took that down. Advertising, we declined or decreased a little bit. Print and copy fees, that was something that was never tracked on its own, so we made it its own line item so we can better watch and track for that. Postage and freight, it's gone up. That's where we send out all of our license renewals. It's out of there. The awards we did away with. Medical supplies, that's never been its own line item. That's why it shows a 0. Or we made its own line item for better tracking, and we added the 72,000 there. That is all of Dr. Haddon's surgery and medical supplies she needs to do those things. Safety supplies, again, never had it before. What that's going to pay for is a first aid kit here at the center. We've never had one, one that's up on the wall. It's fully stocked at all times. So we have small ones that kind of wander around, but we need one that's in a specific place. So we found a carrier that we send in mail request form, and then they send us the supply so we can stock it ourselves. The minor equipment, we cut back a little bit. That was to purchase a washer and dryer. No, I'm sorry. This one's for computers. And we decided we were able to skip one or two computers, so we lowered that by 14%. The shop supplies, that's for our building maintenance supervisor, so he can purchase any new drill or anything that may die on him throughout the year. So we kept that the same. The uniforms, we increased. We still need to present ourselves in a professional manner. Electricity, again, never had its own line item, so we put it in there. General utilities, it dropped 55% because we took out electricity. That's why the switch there. Telephone and cell phones increased just a little bit. That's off a regular trend. Auditing fees, financial services, that's no change. We were told by the city that's how much it's going to be. Membership dues has never been its own line item, so we made it its own for better tracking. Now, this is the big one, the professional and technical services. It's gone, we had to cut it by 68% because it was one of the larger funds. What that also means is that there's no veterinarian that we requested in our other one. No veterinarian, which means less surgeries, which with this, how we're at now, absolutely we're not going to be able to open up for public spay and neuters. Like we were hoping to introduce a little bit into the next coming year. Temp agency services, that changed to 0 because we moved it up into personnel. Purchases general, down 9%. Again, those are services that we ask for. Vehicle maintenance, we have some older vehicles. Our van died in beginning of April. It died on the way out. Literally had blowing engine oil out the back of it, and we had to go rescue our rescue coordinator. And I had to drive and go pick her up, and then we had to tow the van back. So these older vehicles that we have are going to continue to need the maintenance there. Fuel has increased because of regular increased cost. The vehicle tires and tubes, we haven't tracked that in the past. We're doing it now. And then maintenance repairs for the building, actual building, we took it down, we cut it down 46%. We're almost done, I promise. The building rental, if you remember, is for a storage facility that we have. We've never been tracking that before, so it's its own line item. Travel was cut by 64%. That means that money is pretty much already spent because I have a veterinarian technician that needs continuing education, and I also have a veterinarian that needs continuing education credits, and that's just to keep their licenses and certificates. So we will not, I won't be going anywhere on the budget or on the center's dime, nor will any of my staff. So yeah, budget is gone for training. Transportation, that is rescues. We had to cut that by 23%. I know Paul sent me an email this morning, right after we started here, saying that he would rather have one less employee and increase transportation. So, because transportation is the #1 way we get animals out of here. So we're looking at the possibility of doing a little of flexing there. The registration conference fees, what that is, we've never tracked it before, $500, but that's more a registration for us, like to be a part of the National Animal Care and Control Association or the Animal Welfare Administration is what that's for. admin changes. Again, it's a increase of 100% because we weren't charged that for the last year, a couple of years, so we're paying that now. And then the insurance, unemployment, workers' comps are things that we don't have control over very much. We're trying to make people not get hurt. Our food and beverage, again, $400, we cut at 62%. And then our volunteers, I still wanted our volunteers to at least get something. So we kept that at $500 for them to have some recognition, a little party for them. License permits and certificates, this is going to pay for our, like when we have to recertify for euthanasia technicians, they have to go to a class or they have to attend so many hours. And then we have to pay for it. And then it's also paying for our veterinarians, certification, and so on. Training materials we kept, the audio mags, periodicals, we kept that. Those are smaller amounts. And then no charge for that. The major equipment we took out, if I remember right, we were going to purchase a new washer and dryer, right? And we had to take that out. We think that we might be able to limp along. It'll be interesting to see because our dryer is currently on like half the bearings that it's usually supposed to have. So there are some major issues with our budget. And I hope that, like David Dallahan said, that they could revisit it in the coming months once that gross receipt tax comes out. We'll see where it's at. And so a lot of people watching are saying, why in the world did we cut it so much? And the reason is because of COVID-19. People aren't going out, they're not spending the money, which means the taxes isn't being collected by the city and also by the county. So it's bad. It's really bad out there of the money situation. The ASCMV understands that. We're willing to make some cuts. However, it's going to be bad on our side too. So without looking forward in the future, I'm sorry, just a quick thing to consider. We've removed all team meetings or all team building. We were gonna meet up the managers and talk about change, how to cope with change, how to change culture. So we took out that training. We removed all training budget except for that $6,000. We reduced overtime for medical director, operations manager, animal services center, or animal service operations by 50%. We've reduced contract employees by 50%, which are the veterinarians, which means a lot less surgeries. It's in the thousands that we're going to be doing less of. Reduced temporary agency services by 50%. Those are our temporary workers or manpower workers that come in. So if we have somebody leave, we fill it with a temp person until we can get the position filled. And with that cut, then that means we're going to do less of it. Reduced our overall supplies by 50%. We removed all awards programs to recognize staff. We've reduced our medical supplies for our medical director. We reduced all of our professional technical fees, or services. That's for like tests and vaccines are all reduced. We reduced the purchase services general, meaning the services we asked for. We've removed a major equipment budget. We reduced all travel and reduced our overall advertising budget. And Mike here has a note stating that funding may be insufficient to support a reasonable transition into fiscal year 22 and the planned addition to the center. In other words, our new building. We're not going in looking very positive for that either. Don't confuse that with finishing the building. That's all been paid for. It'll be done. But the transition into it was going to be very, very difficult with this budget. And that's my presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Thacker. Are there any questions? Are there any questions for Mr. Thacker? I have a question. Are there any questions? I have a question.
I do, Madam Chair.
Oh, yes. Mayor Pro Tem.
When you're
Amanda?
done, go ahead.
No, go ahead, please.
I have several. I know how difficult. Thank you for the presentation, Clint, David, Finance Committee. I know how grim this must be. I know that the city was prepared to increase the budget, and we're you know, in discussions with the county, I know that they have some major concerns about moving forward in terms of additional funding. I know that, and so I appreciate the re-examination, the cuts that were made. But one thing that I want to push a little bit is on this grant writer. I really believe that the grant writer is going to assist us. Clint, you said last time that there's always grants available where you have to sort of put aside your time and whatnot. That I don't think that we can
afford not to have them.
Afford not to, frankly. There is a lot, thank you, Madam Chair. So much that's writing on this, and either that or the city makes an attempt to focus on with our, as Mr. Sanchez said last time, also with the contractor to really go for some big money. There's a lot of money out there. I think it can help to you know, it can help with things like training and travel and paying for a veterinarian to do contract services. I mean, if our situation was different now with the pandemic, I don't know. I think we're going to have to look at different ways to continue to maintain what's happening currently. Why would we go back to normal and not change some of our, you know, our practices and continuing to reduce the population in the center? If we could do that, then some of this stuff wouldn't be that big of a deal. But because we still have probably, that doesn't mean that we, as Councilor Flores indicated about propagating. I mean, when you have animals who are not spayed and neutered, and that will continue to be a problem. So some of the stuff, although I agree that we can re-examine this in the next couple of 2 or 3 months, I just feel really strongly about this grant writer. I also don't feel like reducing funding around team building and the travel and the different thing. I just think that's really difficult. I mean, the work still needs to happen, the credentialing, the going and getting versed in some new practice or protocol or whatever is always really important. So the other part is, sorry, I'm looking through my notes. You didn't oh, I couldn't see the numbers there, but the administrative costs at $111,000. What is that percentage? What is that in the percentage of that we're giving to the city? And how can we, I mean, the last 2 years you hadn't been asking for administrative costs. And typically the administrative costs are 5 to, I don't know, 8%, something like that. What is that?
I think in the past, the administrative fee, it's always been a percentage.
Yes.
David might be able to address that better than I can.
It's driven by the Joint Powers Agreement, and Leanne's on the line, and I think it works out to 4%, just under 4%, and that's outlined in the JPA. In FY19, we adjusted the budget to exclude that to balance the books at the end of the year, and we authorized that through council action to not collected this current fiscal year FY20, but per the JPA we need to collect it because they do work. Finance does a lot of work for HR for ASCMV, and then as does HR in the hirings. But that's outlined within the joint powers agreement.
It's also, I mean, payroll. They handle our payroll, and they also do all of our IT, and also our building facility too. They come in and they work the building too.
Beyond what Clint's existing maintenance staff does. Those are the bigger expenses.
I understand all of that. I know, I see the budget. I approve that. I understand that piece of it. I appreciate the 4%. Okay.
David, could you explain the 4% again? Because I'm showing on this slide, it shows that it's 17.7% of our budget is the 111,000. So what's the 4%?
That's the 111,000 across your entire budget, including personnel. That's the 111 divided by 2.836 million. That's your total expense. That's how I formulated that. Clint, you may be calculating it based on your operating, not including personnel. That's why it would be high.
That's non-personnel. Okay, thank you.
So I'm asking that if one of those vacancies be a grant writer. I think once you can fill that position and start getting grants, she or he can hold their own paying that salary. But we're never going to move in the direction that we want until we get that, or that we get some agreement from the city that they're going to spend a considerable amount of time going for mega grants as it relates to the Animal Services Center.
I've had discussions with Commissioner Gonzalez, set me up with the county grant writer. The problem is that all government agencies are scrambling for money right now. And I have not reached out to the county grant writer, but I know from other experiences talking with other places is that they are so busy getting grants for themselves that we would be considered a back burner kind of a thing. So,
well, Clinton, I think we need to make a really tough decision. I guess I'm directing you to get one of those vacancy positions and convert it into a grant writer, because again, we need someone to specifically address that's what they do, so that we can start getting money coming into the center, so that you can do some of these projects that you want. Not only they pay for the salary, but all these other projects that we think are super important, like maintaining the live release rate, consistently month to month, ensuring that people are, are spaying and neutering their animals, those kinds of things, advertisement, education, fostering. There's so many of those things that I feel that if we don't take the plunge, when are we going to? This is probably the right time to do it. I know it's challenging, but I just feel really strongly about that. And the rest of it, I think there's things that you could do as a group in terms of team building that doesn't cost a lot of money. Hey, you're talking to a retired government person that did that on no money at all, right? It's unfortunate, but those are things that I would encourage you to do, and not go into like, we can't do it. We were going to do this team building exercise. There is a lot of people here in this community that would offer their services free to do team building for you. And so reach out to me. I'm happy to help connect you to those people, but that is not something that I think we should let go.
Wait, thank you very much.
Can I ask a question of Clint related to the budget?
Yes, Mr. Dahlin.
Clint, you made during your presentation that Paul said that he would give up a position to increase his transport expenses. Do you have an estimate of how much that position he's talking about costs within the budget? And I'm assuming that's a vacant position within the roster now.
I'd have to get back to you on that. I don't think it's a vacant position because we're not filling any of the vacant positions.
Right, because I was trying to figure out when you made that statement where Paul was getting that.
When it is vacated, or if somebody does leave, that money would move. But you can't move money, from personnel down to operation expenses. So,
well, you can through the board's action, but it has to be the timing has to be right, and you have to have that vacancy. And I'm assuming in COVID-19 era that people are going to hold on to jobs as long as possible. And we
want to. We don't. We're not asking somebody to quit. We're not trying to get rid of somebody either.
Right. And I was just going to offer that if that vacancy comes along, then you could interview that, entertain that idea and bring it to the board. I think we're, bless you, but for the rest of the board, I think
my name is
we have to be looking at budget.
We were looking at your, I guess it's the hello.
Excuse me, we're getting some interference here.
Kilo. That makes more sense.
Hello?
But one thing we're needing to do, and I was going to ask you if you know if this is possible, does it pass through closed captioning in Beth?
Adrian,
Adrian,
you're still live.
Adrian,
Turn off your mic.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Adrian.
Yes. Okay, hold on one second. Yes.
Can you turn off?
We're getting your voices. I just heard Udell's powerful voice, and we can't hear David Dallahan.
He just muted.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, thank you.
So, Madam Chair, if I can, I'm not quite, so David, I understand about in the future or near future that might happen. Is there any room whatsoever that we can at least pay for a part-time grant writer? We have a freeze on positions. We can't let go even part-time and start working on this?
Madam Chair, within your current year's budget, and Councilor Gondar, I would say no. Within your next year's budget, that's always an opportunity. Your only other option, and I can't direct this, this would have to come from the city council. This came up and that was going to be one of my talking points during the ASCMV Finance Committee, is the city could, contrary to the Joint Powers Agreement, provide more money than the county can. It's a decision of the full council. And as was stated earlier, the city had prepared to set aside additional funding beyond the 1.2 million proposed by that. But until the council adopts its budget with that direction back to city management, that's really the only option. But it's within the city council's direction back to management.
So what is the process then? I get that as from mayor to be put on the agenda as something to consider as a resolution?
Madam Chair, Board Member Gondar, I think the best course of action is that the councilors choose to inform the city manager that they would like that reflected in the budget. And then it can be appropriately incorporated within the adoption of the city's budget at the May 18th meeting.
Okay, sounds good. The May 18th. Okay, so we have a little bit of time.
Right.
Not much.
Well, and please remember, this is the budget starting on July 1st. So we can make amendments after this budget is adopted by this board, and then the council adopts its budget in May 18th. We have time to adjust before it takes effect July 1st. And you're not going to hire somebody between now and July 1st to start. We wouldn't do that. That would be difficult, especially in light of COVID.
So I don't know that it would. I think there's a lot of people looking for a job, specifically to part-time. So I would kind of, not make a statement that direct, because I think there are people that might want to do this part-time between now and then, but I'm not sure.
You don't have the budget in the current fiscal year to do that. That budget's really tight.
But could we, like other nonprofits,
of course, there's always opportunities.
Okay. All right. The other question that I have is about the van. Who makes the van?
Sorry?
You had spoke about your van going kaput down. And I guess it's no longer operable.
It's being worked on right now by City Fleet.
Okay, so that was my question. Who manages it, and are you on that schedule and whatnot?
Schedule for for maintenance, scheduled maintenance? Yes. Yes, it's all of our vehicles are on the scheduled maintenance, oil changes, etc. The van has been an issue ever since I've gotten on. There's always something wrong with that Ford van. And the mechanic where she broke down in Arizona said that it looks like it's either a blown gasket or needs an entire engine repair. But they said they would not drive it back. They said, whatever you do not drive it back. So we had to tow it back, which was expensive as well.
Yeah. So obviously it's not on warranty. It's an older one. It's one that probably needs to be replaced.
And again, I mean, I get that's easily done in a transport grant from PetSmart or Petco. They can purchase these things. I just, like you said, need somebody that can write that up.
Got it. Understood. And right back at you. I hope that we make some sort of direction, a very clear plea that needs to be something that we do. And so certainly from my recommendation, Clint, I will be going back to the city manager to speak about the amount continuing to be as it was described to us at our budget meeting for ASCMV. And then lastly, have we talked, we've been talking a lot about the joint powers agreement and things that, one of the issues that I brought up is county's portion of the new facility and how we are going to work through that. And have there been discussions about that? And if not, how do we begin those discussions? I know it's something that we will have to look at changing our joint powers agreement, but I think this is something we need to talk about sooner rather than later.
So I think David can talk about that as well, because we were just starting to get meetings scheduled for that when the whole COVID thing happened.
Madam Chair, Councilor Ganda, Clint is correct. We are having, we've restarted that dialogue. I am having city budget staff work with Clint staff on potential transition because that's scheduled for a May 13th City Council work session. That's a discussion that needs to have with the council first and foremost, because it is your building and ASCMV is in that building. And it's talking about incorporating ASCMV into city operations with animal control. So we want to give you the financial analysis on that. I think I have a meeting with Clint and his staff and budget staff on Monday on looking at some numbers so we can make an informed presentation to City Council on May 13th. And then from the direction from Council at May 13th, at that work session, then continue the dialogue with the county about their role in continuing operation of the shelter and will of the center, excuse me, and then going from there, future terms. So either way, we have to update the current JPA, or we need to do something else. Can I ask Mary Lou, do you have your hand, Madam Chair? Mary Lou Ward, your hand is up. I didn't know if she had still questions. And Councilor Gondar, I'm sorry, do you still have questions?
No, I just realized I was on mute, and I'm thanking you. I appreciate that our conversations are, I know with the pandemic that it sort of ceased. I think this is our new normal. We just have to keep moving through having these conversations by Zoom. And I think that we at least shown some good leadership in continuing to meet rather than canceling our meetings and such. I mean, you know, the welfare of animals doesn't stop. It just doesn't. So appreciate it. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Madam Chair.
And thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I did speak apropos of the JPA. I did have a conversation with City Manager Maestas about that. And he did indicate that we talked about these very things that we discussed just a few moments ago. And I was talking about the grant, having a grant writer and how important that was, and that it may not be possible budget-wise. And he did indicate, just as Mr. Dollahan said a few minutes ago, that it is possible for the city to pick up certain expenses. I don't know exactly how that works, but as Mr. Dollahan said, this is something that we'll be discussing on May 13. I don't know the extent or the depth of that discussion on May 13th. I think between now and then, I'll try to get as much information, or I'll look into getting more information on where that might be going. So, Ms. Ward, you have your hand up. Did you want to say something? Mary Lou? Mary Lou?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Now I can. Yes, I can.
Yes, I just had a question in regards to the budget and the reporting of the budget. In the future, I don't see where it has any kind of donations that gets reported every month. And I was wondering if we could have some type of reporting in the future where it talks about donations going into the shelter and categorize those donations on how they're coming in. Because I know we report donations. So when like officers that go to court and people that are mandated to give money into the services center, and I have gone in and checked through the services center to see if that's been paid, and it has been paid, but it's not getting reported on the budget review. I was just wondering if that could get reported.
Actually, Mary Lou, I'll disagree because Clint pulled up the budget screen to show the donations and the memorials, and it is on the monthly report for revenue.
It is?
In the donations, yes. It is a specific line item.
Okay, but it's not broken down. I see it now. Thank you. I just didn't see it broken down. Okay.
Mary Lou, we clump together private donations and gifts and memorials together. If you need community service or other donations delineated differently, we can pull that out. And it may be for better tracking purposes for everybody involved. We can set up a separate account line item for those court-ordered donations.
Yeah. Okay.
But that they both go in that same line item, but we would differentiate them out on the books.
Okay, thank you. That was my question.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Gordon. Thank you, Mr. Dollahan. You want to put your hand down, or are you going to have more questions?
I'll lower my hand. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Commissioner Sanchez, do you have a comment or question?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just have a couple of comments, and I know, Mr. Thacker, this has not been I know the conversation that we were looking forward to originally prior to the pandemic, but I really appreciate the work that you put into this, and I know I know speaking for what we're expecting at the county, things may be tough for a little bit, but I really appreciate you trying to look at this, trying to maintain the best that you can for the team. And I know it's been mentioned before, we'll take a look again at the end of first quarter. That way we have a full understanding of what our gross receipts tax, what the impact of the gross receipts tax will be for us in the county. By then we'll have a better understanding of that. So hopefully if we can support a little more, we can reevaluate where we think there might be some room, if we do have some room to increase the budget, or where we might have some areas that we might be tight, then I definitely want to revisit it after the first quarter. But I really do appreciate you and the team taking the time to work on this budget and trying to find ways that you can cut it, at least for now, until we can hopefully get back to some sense of normalcy in the community and within the economy as well.
Thank you. I think a lot of credit needs to go to Mr. Fusini, our management analysis. Without him, man, we'd be floundering. We sure appreciate his hard work on doing this. So thank you. I'll pass it on to him.
And I did the same thing. I mean, pass the same thing to your team. I know it's tough times. They've been phenomenal. I think, as well as everything with the numbers that we have, it's been amazing to see how low we are. And I know that's a reflection not just of the additional adoptions by our communities, but some of the changes we've implemented. So hopefully, when the emergency orders are lifted, we can continue to try to find ways that we can start looking at things a little bit differently, and how we can continue to kind of maintain or even increase the numbers further. So thank you.
I agree. It's been amazing to see the different places from across the country, different animal centers that are doing that exact same thing, saying, look, we learned this from this pandemic. Let's continue to implement these changes, or let's change this, let's change that. So the whole, like I said before, the whole industry of animal care and control has been flipped upside down because of this pandemic. And honestly, it's a good thing, because things were getting a little stale and things have really been shook up. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stevens, and thank you, Mr. Thacker. Does anyone have any other questions? Okay, so this is what I wanted to say, or need to say, is that Mayor Pro Tem Gandara has expressed it very well, and my concerns are the same. I believe that we, first and foremost, we need a grant writer, and that's why I did speak to interim city manager Maestas about that, and a veterinarian. And I sent you an email, Clint, about this, about moving some line items or whatever. I don't know budget, so it's not for me to say do it this way, do it that way. But I do know that, and it may be, budget items are there, and I know that we set our budgets for the city, and then throughout the year we make adjustments, and then that of course is up to the budget department, but to make those, and then we approve or whatever. But I mean, it comes before City Council for review. So there are line items there that you have budgeted for, vacancies that aren't filled. So I think that, I mean, I don't know how you go about this, but the money is there that isn't being used, and yet it's being allocated as a budget item. So I want to keep our veterinarian there. an additional veterinarian. I know that you reworded vet tech or veterinarian assistant to veterinarian tech, but we need a veterinarian, and we need to have it on our budget, because I think that 2021 isn't going to be felt as horribly we're going to be more impacted in 2022. Fiscal year 2022 is the year where we're really going to be hurting. And if predictions about COVID continue, I mean, God knows, nobody knows, because we're hearing it both ways. We're hearing, oh, it's going to get better when it's summertime, but it's going to be a worse thing in the winter, yada, yada. But all that being said, we still have to move forward with what we have. So I believe very strongly that we need to have a grant writer. And it may be true, Mr. Thacker, that that there's people out there scrambling for money right and left, but a grant writer specific to veterinary center needs would have that potential of identifying grants that would give to our center. So and I've never been someone who I've always beaten the odds. I've gone against the odds. And in my personal life and professional life, where people say it couldn't be done, and you go, why not? And you move forward with that. And so I would like to have the board direct you to pursue the possibility of somehow in the budget working to have to get our grant writer and to get another veterinarian. We need another doctor there. There's just no two ways about it. And I don't know, again, I don't know how it would be done exactly, but I do know that there are some vacancies there. And then the other points that Mayor Pro Tem Gandara brought up are very true. The team building is very important and wonderful. I mean, these are hard times, very difficult times all around. People are worried about, I don't know, I think most of us are worried about our loved ones being maybe, or even ourselves being contaminated with this contagion. So we have a lot on our minds, and our hearts are heavy, but we really need to move forward to take care of our little critters. So I don't know how the rest of the board and Mr. Dollahan or anyone, Mr. Dollahan specifically, how do we move forward on this? We direct the board, we direct the center as a board. Do we need a motion? Do we vote on the current budget? I just need something, the procedural aspect of this to come up with that end.
Madam Chair, how you would do that is you would make a motion in a second to amend the resolution that's before you. But I have a question before you entertain that. Clint, in your budget that is presented in the resolution, you have no vacant positions budgeted, correct? It's every position that is filled. So I think that's a misconception. There are no vacant positions contained within your budget. So you can't rob from Peter to pay Paul to pay for a veterinarian or a grant writer, either part-time or full-time.
To be clear, there's 11 vacant positions currently right now at the center. And the way that and that includes some of the ones that were not funded from previous year, from this year. So we would not be filling those positions, but still get funds for them. So we would have the funds, but those funds are paying for the positions that were not funded.
So you do have unfunded positions. You do have funded vacant positions.
Yes.
You could, sorry for the cat, but you could take, he's a rescue, so I'm doing my part. It's old and senile. You could take within the existing budget in your vacant positions and reallocate them elsewhere to the veterinarian or the grant writer, either part-time or full-time or both. You just would lose those vacant, part of those vacant positions.
And there's no positions we have that makes the same as a veterinarian.
No, no, you would have to lose. You would have to lose 2 positions to get a veterinarian.
Oh, at the very least, most likely 3, 2.5 to 3, because I have to pay them at least $100,000 for them, and also pay for their licensing and their credits, continuing credits.
Sure.
If somebody interested. And that's the thing. I can do anything that you guys are talking about. We just have to take from somewhere else to make it happen. And yeah, and again, I'm in agreement with everything that's been said because I presented a budget that had all of them in, and then that's what we want. It's just where are we going to get that information or that money? And like I said, the other problem is that if we do hire a veterinarian, then that means more surgeries, which means I need more equipment. I need more medical equipment. I need more recovery equipment. I mean, it's just this big snowball that needs to be increased as we go down the line.
Can I ask you a question?
Can I ask you a question, Mr. Dollahan?
Sure. Go ahead, ma'am. Sorry.
Thank you. No, I just because otherwise I might forget. But apropos of what Mr. Thacker just said about increasing supplies, could those be modifications down the road on the budget after we voted on it?
Yes, ma'am. It clearly could. Once you had the person on board and you were further on into the year. That was leading to my question. Thank you very much. Clint, what's the likelihood and how long would it take you to hire an on-staff veterinarian? We had difficulties in the past, especially as a medical director. Today is a new day, as Councilor Gonda alluded to. There are people that are looking for jobs, so I would assume it might be a little bit easier, but those are not easy to fill positions, correct?
And we also have a individual, Dr. Haddon, who's here, who's been in New Mexico her whole life, knows a lot of the surgeons that are willing to do that. So, I mean, we have her name and reputation that would help as well.
Okay, so those do change things, but Madam Chair, going back to your question about procedurally how to do this,
yes.
You can make a motion, have motions made that direct staff to address those 2 issues, the grant writer and the veterinarian, from a staffing standpoint, because you've got the budget there, you're just taking away other positions. That provides direction, and you can go back and adopt the main budget as presented. You just have to work through adjusting the line items within those budget, but your bottom line stays the same. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does, and that's exactly what I proposed, and I believe that's what Mayor Pro Tem Cassandra Gandara also was saying. So is there a motion in that regard from a board member? I can't make that motion as the chair.
I motion to direct staff to move funding to those 2 positions, a grant writer and a veterinarian, by contract. Is that all right?
Madam Chair, I don't think you could do it by contract, especially the veterinarian.
Okay. All right.
Let staff the ability to work through that, but I wouldn't put the limitation on as a contract.
Okay, that's fine.
Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second the motion.
So it was moved by Mayor Pro Tem Gandara to have to direct, the motion is to direct staff to move funding for the existing budget to provide for a veterinarian and a
Grant writer.
grant writer. Thank you. What would I do without you, Clint? So is there a second to that? It was seconded by Councilor Stubbe.
Yes, ma'am.
And can I just make a recommendation to Adrian? I sent him a private message, but Councilor Beta-Stubbe cannot turn her video on. It appeared like the host turned it off. Can we get that correct, please?
Let me look.
Yeah, she
Thank
is.
you. I just got it.
Here she is. We have her smile back. Yay.
Adrian made me a co-host, so I now have that power too, and so I asked her to start a video. So she's back in the world of the video. Sorry, Counselor.
Back in the world of the living. Great.
She was always in the living, she was just now in the visual.
Well, yeah, the scene, we have now seen her. So any further discussion besides Councilor Beta-Stubbe not being on the screen? Any discussion? Mr. Dollahan, would you please do the roll call on that?
Gladly, ma'am. Commissioner Ellens? Commissioner Ellens?
Yes.
Commissioner Councilor Beta-Stubbe?
Yes.
Councilor Gondara?
Yes.
Commissioner Sanchez?
Rose.
Commissioner Sanchez?
There is.
Commissioner Sanchez? You're
You're on
still.
Sorry, I'm having issues with my connection, so I keep coming in and out. So, sorry, I just want to make sure. So the motion is to change funds for a grant writer and a vet?
Yes, sir. It's a motion and a second
Direct.
on an amendment to the staff within the existing proposed budget in the main resolution before you to find to move money around to find a veterinarian and a grant writer from vacant funded positions.
Oh, yes. Thank you.
Chairperson Flores?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. Commissioner Gonzalez left the meeting, by the way.
Okay, thank you. So, good. So we're now we can go back to the main resolution with that amendment. Are we?
That is correct, ma'am, unless there's any further discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Dollahan. Thank you very much, David, for your assistance in this. So next is the, do we have any further discussion on the resolution? Do we have any further questions for Mr. Thacker or any comments, any concerns, anything that is really pressing? Okay. So Mr. Dollahan, would you please take do a roll call on resolution 2020-12, adopt the ASCMV FY 2021 annual budget with the amendment we just passed.
Yes, ma'am, gladly. Commissioner Ellens?
Yes.
Commissioner, Councilor Beta-Stubbe?
Yes.
Councilor Gondara?
Yes.
Commissioner Sanchez?
Yes.
Chairperson Flores?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. Commissioner Gonzalez is absent.
Thank you, Mr. Dollahan. So we have public input. And let me just make a clarification on public input. My understanding of public input is that Mr. Bryce has come before us, other people such as Ms. Gilbert when we've been in chambers and people express their concerns and maybe pose questions. But the protocol I have seen and what I followed through our city council meetings is that we take the input, but we don't necessarily ask questions or respond to it. And I don't know, Mr. Dollahan or Mayor Pro Tem Gandara, if that is the correct way to proceed. And I'm saying this in view of a question that Mr. Thacker presented to me yesterday about a community member who previously his questions were posed to us at our last meeting. And Mr. Thacker actually answered his questions, which was fine. But this particular person wanted to have these questions presented again and answered again because his concern was that there weren't enough viewers. Well, I don't know how he got the number of how many viewers there were. I don't know if that's absolutely correct. But the point is public input, Mr. Dollahan or Mayor Pro Tem Gandara, is to have the input, not necessarily for us to entertain a discussion or answer questions. Am I correct in proceeding in that manner or not? Mr. Dollahan? Mr. Dollahan, I can't hear you. Can you hear me?
You're on mute, Mr. Dollahan.
Sorry, the rules are changed when I'm the co-host. Can you hear me now?
Yes, can hear you now.
All right, sorry. So I was looking at the agenda. As it was posted on the agenda in light of the public health order, public comments are available and members of the public were directed to email either Mr. Thacker or Bernice Navarro, either before the meeting or during this meeting. I don't know that anybody has. I turn it over to Clint, and I don't see Bernice on the line to see if there were any other public comment received. It is broadcast live on YouTube and City Channel 20. The best mechanism for all members of the public, if they were to offer public comment, is to submit an email to those two, either of those persons, based on the direction provided with the posted agenda. So I don't know if there's any comment.
We did have 2 emails come in yesterday, and none have been submitted during our meeting.
Okay. So Madam Chair, at that point, I would assume that then Clint can identify those public comments and then address them as appropriate.
Yes.
I think he's only obligated to read them into the public record, and then we can follow up with the questions as appropriate later or at the next meeting.
Well, thank you, Mr. Dollahan. But Mr. Thacker, you received 2 emails.
Yes, ma'am.
Would you
I'm
please?
sorry, may I respond to that as well?
Oh, yes. Yes, Mayor Pro Tem Gandara, please.
Thank you. I think it's important to have public comment. I know that staff through the city is working on a resolution to change how we receive public comment and be able to respond to it during the COVID. There's a resolution being brought to us at our special meeting tomorrow. And so, you know, Mayor usually allows for that. He answers or says a few things, asks questions, but it doesn't preclude the members of council to maybe ask a question or answer during their comments, their councilor comments. So those would be opportunities I feel that we as members of a board can work through that. If we don't have an answer, I would defer that our executive director find the answer and reach out, and then make sure that either executive or at the next meeting, that somewhere, somehow, that we as a collective understand that happened and that it was asked and answered.
I agree, and I think that's the best mechanism, is that if Mr. Thacker could read the comments today, and if we're in a position to answer them. If not, then follow up at the next meeting with the answer and action that was provided to it, so we can document it in the meeting minutes as appropriate. People do have the rights to submit comments based on the posted agenda during the meeting to Mr. Thacker. One thing we may want to it's a little hard to manage during the meeting, listing all of the board members' addresses. So if anybody wants to make a comment to you, then you need them, but that means you have to multitask by paying attention to what's going on in the meeting, and then also look at your emails. There's no right or wrong answer. It's just, it'd probably be easier to direct them to Clint and Bernice and make sure that Bernice is participating in it, and then we'll have Bernice act in that role as reporting. Hi, Bernice.
Here.
Okay. So if you'd like, Madam Chair, I think the best course of action is for Clint to read those two public comments.
Yes, and proceed accordingly, as you and Mayor Pro Tem Gandara recommended. Thank you, Mr. Thacker. Would you please read the emails?
I will. There are two emails, and neither of them really have questions. It's more of a public comment, but there are things in here that we could address when completed. The first one is from Emmy Stanford. She says, "Good evening. I hope you are all well. My name is Emmeline Stanford, and I have been volunteering as a dog walker and offsite caretaker at the Animal Service Center, Mesilla Valley since June of 2000. I was made aware of the upcoming board meeting tomorrow and wanted to take the opportunity to share a bit of my own experiences and thoughts regarding my experiences at the ASCMV. My comments, feedback points as a volunteer are as follows. Staff members. Staff members in my experience have always been polite and helpful towards myself and other volunteers. I have always felt very welcomed by them and have no negative comments or experiences regarding my interactions with shelter workers. Many of the staff members work extremely hard to ensure that the animals are cared for, not only by feeding them, but by showing them affection and compassion whenever possible. There are some amazing people working at the ASCMV, and I'm thoroughly grateful for them. Emily Muir does a fantastic job as volunteer coordinator. She has always been professional, friendly, welcoming, and has displayed a genuine care for the well-being of all rescues at the shelter. She sends updates to all volunteers by email and generally displays a serious interest in reaching out to the community and the ASCMV volunteer workers. Recently, myself and other volunteers were permitted to take large breed dogs into the fenced-in runs out back and let them off leash. I think this is an excellent idea, as it allows us to give a greater number of dogs a chance to exercise and also allows the dogs to move about freely without the restriction of a leash. Walks on a leash are also great in order to familiarize the dogs with the walking procedure. But I think that for purposes of exercise, allowing them to run off leash in the enclosure is a great way to include more dogs in the exercise regime in a shorter period of time. I think the recent renovations to the cat room have been excellent. The cats seem to have a much cleaner, more organized and spacious shelter area. I personally think it's an excellent idea to play soft music for the dogs. It seems to calm them down a bit. Many dogs do not have adequate space to move about. The kennels are very small, and I have often seen kennel mates fighting with one another. They do not have the space to get away from aggressors, and aggressive dogs are housed together with other dogs despite the fact that they continually attack the more submissive dog. I understand this is not a problem caused directly by staff, but I hope that this issue will be discussed thoroughly and any possible solutions will be examined, as this is probably the biggest problem that I personally have witnessed. The dogs do not have enough space to move around, and many of them become aggressive with each other as a result. I've noticed on several occasions that these aforementioned aggressive dogs are repeatedly housed with other dogs despite them causing injuries to their kennel mates. I've always assumed this is due to the lack of available space. There isn't enough room to allow one dog per kennel, even though that dog displays aggressive behavior. I've noticed that sometimes staff members will use loud noises such as banging on the kennel bars or water hoses to silence barking dogs. I'm not a trained expert in animal psychology, but I personally felt distressed by this, as I believe that it could only heighten the anxiety of the dogs. I think that all animals should be treated while being housed in a shelter. And while I know that most staff members are doing their best to provide the peaceful environment for the dogs, I have also seen occasional disregard for the feelings of the animals under their care. I believe that the earplugs combined with soft music are a useful alternative to lull and or avoid the loud noise frightening dogs. I think that scaring them with excessively loud noises or physical punishment is only going to make conditions worse and cause them further trauma they've already than they have already experienced. Again, I believe that most of the workers at the ASCMV have the well-being of the animals at heart. I thank those who work hard to keep the dogs as calm and happy as possible. I've always had positive experiences caring for off-site shelter pets at Petco. On the few occasions that I observed a cat showing signs of illness and reported to the shelter, the cat was removed immediately and the issue was addressed. However, there have been times when a cat is placed at an off-site cattery without any information about the cat. As a result, I can't give any potential adopters any information, such as age, gender, health, name, etc. Off-site adoption events have always been excellent, and the attending staff are very helpful and friendly. If possible, I think that the shelter could have more of these events in the future. As I mentioned above, I think that the biggest problem that I've seen at the shelter is the minimal space for animals. The lack of space for dogs in particular leads to the aggressive behavior and anxious, frightening dogs. I've heard of the shelters planning massive renovations, and I hope that the incoming changes will help this problem. I am very grateful for the staff who work at the shelter and everyone who dedicates their time and energy to keep these animals a fighting chance. Thank you so much for the opportunity to give feedback. I will be tuning in to watch the meeting tomorrow, and I hope that all goes well and that we can work together to provide conditions for all rescue animals. Regards, Emily Stanford. So first of all, hello, Emily. I'm glad that you're watching today and attending the board meeting. The issue to me I'd like to address is about the dogs and the treatment of the animals that are in the back. All of our staff has been trained by a well-known dog trainer here in the area that when dogs fight, to use loud noises to disrupt that fight. Worst case scenario, to spray a hose, feet wet, grab the back of the legs, throw a blanket. All these things are all mentioned, and it's progressive. You don't one and you go to the other. The spraying of dogs because they're barking, absolutely not acceptable. There's no reason for that. The fighting of animals, we have instances where there's food aggression, where animals are fed together and they fight over that food. And there's also issues of just a dog being ultra dominant and having a dog that's also very ultra dominant. And when they're put in the same place, they have to establish that. They have to communicate. And the way they communicate is by fighting and forcing one another. So those are things that we work around, we shuffle animals all the time, moving them around. Right now, we don't have that big of a problem on any of those, because if an animal has an issue with needing food or being fed alone, we can put them in a place by themselves and feed them because we have the space. Same thing with the aggressive animals that are dominant bound, that they can go with other animals. But as far as the loud noises and things, I'll pass that on to our kennel supervisor, and we'll get some more training in place because that should never happen, especially spraying a dog because it's barking is unacceptable for certain. About cats going to offsite with no information, most of the time that's just an oversight. Somebody didn't grab the paperwork, because we have one individual whose job was, while we were doing offsites, to gather all the information. She does a fantastic job. She may have overlooked one here or two here, but there's a pile of forms that they're supposed to take that has all the animals' information on it. So if that did happen, it was an oversight of that to do. So that's usually, I agree with everything that Emmy here is saying and appreciate her comments.
Thank you, Mr. Thacker. And there's one more?
One more, yes, ma'am. This is from Cindy Eck. It says, what areas need the most work? Question mark. Vet your resources. Make them meet a standard if they are pulling from ASCMV. Example, K9 6 is in the midst of parvo reinfection. Stick with the ones who actually know what they are doing. What has been done in the past that you've found to be successful that we should be doing more of? The social videos really work as far as pulling on the heartstrings of those who saw and had the opportunity to pull pets. How can we make communication better between fosters, adopters, volunteers, and shelter workers? I think what you have going on now is working. I'm not currently fostering, but I get the emails and updates, and it makes me want to come down and volunteer. So she kind of answers or they answer their own questions. I don't see any need to address those right now. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Thacker. So we move down now to chair and board comments. So I'll go down, let's see, Mayor Pro Tem Gandara, do you have any comments?
Thank you, Madam Chair and my colleagues on the board. I appreciate your diligence to Clint and his staff. I know how difficult these last few months have been, especially during budget time, and to not get what you think you need. And so please extend my gratitude to each of your staff members. The doc there, very appreciative and grateful for all that they do. I know that we received an email specifically, Madam Chair, myself and you and Mayor, and maybe Mr. Ellens, Commissioner Ellens, about an animal being really sick and sort of being adopted, and alluded to not caring for the animal. And so I've appreciated doctors' response to that, and all the number of things that took place with this animal, to being not only first treatment but second treatment of the animal. Maybe this goes to some of the latter comments, Mr. Thacker, about communication, all the way around, right? Like from the medical director to yourself to the staff about this particular animal. It felt like tensions and anxiety was heightened because of how sickly the animal was. And so I'm encouraging increased communication between you and the medical director. I think would be super important. It's important for you to know that these things are happening. I don't think that you were aware, and I know that's difficult to do with 194 animals. But I'd like to continue to advocate for the communication. I like the idea of the on-call worker, if you will, and maybe that is sort of coming up with protocols and processes even after hours, when an email might be sent to you and whoever the supervisors are, just so that everybody is aware that this is happening, and maybe pitfalls or things that we might do to encourage that communication so that we're not blindsided, because I felt that in a sense you were blindsided by that. And so I just want to not only say kudos to a very, very difficult situation, but also give some constructive feedback about what appears from the outside in. Again, I appreciate the opportunity, so thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Gandara. Commissioner Sanchez.
No, I'm good. I think everything that I've said, I think it was in particular to the budget. I just appreciate everything that Mr. Thacker and his team have done over the past year since I've been on the board, and appreciate everything you've done so far and your leadership in a time that is going to be proved to be a little challenging as we move forward. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner Sanchez. Councillor Abetes-Duby.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the most part, I think everything's been answered. I did bring up an issue during our finance meeting, and I think the public should just be very aware, just to make sure that when they are adopting or fostering animals, but we have seen, there's a push to adopt now that we're all home, but for our public to be very mindful that these are long-term animals and to stay with your family even after the quarantine is over. I know there is already an expected increase after quarantine is lifted, that we will probably see a bit of an increase of animals returned or not given the care that they need. And so I just want the public to be very mindful that these are your forever friends and that it is a long-term commitment even after quarantine is lifted. So,
Thank you. Thank you very much for that comment, Councilor Batastuvi. I think that everybody else has left. Oh, Mr. Ellens, Commissioner Ellens, do you have any comments? Commissioner Ellens?
I'm good.
Oh, you're okay. Anybody else on the board whose name I don't see here? That
Quintero is here from the county as well. Jeannie, wave your hand if you want to speak, and I'll unmute you.
Who?
The ex officio on the counter is Jeannie Quintero, and she just shook her head no. She didn't have any comments. And Madam Chair, I don't have any specific comments, but I want to commend Clint for a good reading test that he passed today by reading the email. So good for you.
Excellent reading, yes. Thank you, Mr. Allahan. And I just want to thank everybody on this board and everybody, Jean Gilbert and everyone else who's contributed to today's meeting. All the hard work, Mary Lou Ward and Gino Jimenez. And I just want to thank everybody. I'm deeply grateful. I really appreciate your hard work, Mr. Thacker. Your commitment deserves all the kudos in the world. And so thank you. And I just want to wish everybody, good health and remember to stay safe by washing your hands, staying home, and respecting social distancing. Thank you very much.
Need a motion to.
Without further ado, I don't need a motion to adjourn. I can adjourn the meeting.
Okay.
This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, guys.